My name is Wouter Wening. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm the Deputy Chairman of the IUCN Commission on Environmental, Economic and Social Policy, and I work out of the Institute for Environmental Security in The Hague. The theme of our workshop was how to bring environment and security together. Which challenges for change do we have, considering the fact that the world is facing tremendous ecological problems, especially in the form of climate change, melting glaciers, hurricanes, droughts, floods, water shortages, resulting food shortages, etc., which may result and are resulting in several places of the world already in severe tensions, conflicts, and the potential for violent conflicts there unless we know how to act. So we thought, let's bring together the security sector and environmental sector.
When I learned that NATO had this CIMIC unit, which stands for Civil Military Cooperation, I went there to lobby for paying attention to environmental issues. Because, I mean, a bridge that you destroy, you can even reconstruct it after 20, 50 years. But if you lose a population of mountain gorillas, you never get it back. It's like with archaeological things. You've seen what the Taliban did to these big statues in Bamyan. We'll never get those things back. It's not different for environmental issues. And moreover, if you talk about long-term stability, then you have to take into consideration the environmental dimension. And I was very happy when I came just for lobbying, then they asked me, why don't you join us? Which I did. Thank you.
I'm Sherry Goodman with CNA. I've served formerly as Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Environmental Security for 8 years, where I devoted myself and our organization in the U.S. Department of Defense to improving environmental cooperation on security matters. And this meeting here today is a landmark achievement in many ways in bringing together the security and environmental communities that are so important now to future stability of our planet, indeed. And as climate change has indeed become a security threat, it is really a threat multiplier for instability in volatile regions of the world. It is increasingly important that the military leaders, national security communities join with environmental scientists, environmental organizations such as IUCN and others to advance our state of understanding of ecological change and damage that may occur in the future from climate change and other factors, and better to be able to prepare, plan, prevent, adapt, and mitigate as best we can. So this was, I think, a very important gathering that will hopefully lead to further collaboration among the security and environmental communities.
And I'm Dave Katerius. I'm also a researcher at CNA. And today was here to demonstrate how the environmental security community can take environmental issues such as climate change and look at them not from an environmental perspective, but instead from a security perspective. So instead of taking a look at what types of impacts climate change has on the natural environment, we look and see what impacts it has on the human environment and human populations and how they're likely to respond to threats to their food security, their water security, their health and their shelter, and what types of things that the military needs to be prepared for when these types of impacts start to hit in the future.
Two people sitting here are from the security sector, Center for Naval Analysis. Piet Witt is from both. He's a conservationist and working with the NATO effort in Uruzgan. There was a retired general from Nepal, a colonel from Thailand, a Navy captain from Mauritania, several representatives of think tanks, the Dutch Institute for International Relations, who advises the Dutch Ministry of Defense on what kind of army do you need in case of furthering climate change and humanitarian disasters. And we had people, we had the Director General of IUCN making a contribution, the Chief Scientist, Jeff McNeely of IUCN, various commission chairs like Keith Wheeler, on a double function here. So we had a very good mix of both practitioners in security and people very active in the IUCN movement.
And the list is available?
Yes, yes.
Now, usually it is the army which also causes environmental pollution. Now, when it undertakes operations, have you thought of that too, or are you thinking only of scenarios where climate change takes place? I really can't imagine how you're going to tackle climate change with the help of the military.
I'll address both parts of your questions. Certainly, militaries have been the source of pollution and environmental damage in military activities. For the 8 years I was in the Department of Defense, much of the mill-to-mill cooperation we did with militaries worldwide was about sharing best practices and learning how to reduce and prevent pollution from military activities. Cleaning up military bases, managing hazardous waste, improving water management, dealing with chemical pollution, etc. That is, of course, remains an important part of mill-to-mill cooperation and military environmental cooperation. At the same time, we see now that there is an increasing threat to global security and stability from climate change, which will produce increased sea level rise, flooding and inundation, more extreme weather events, impaired food production, increased health and disease spread globally. These will all have effects on global security and stability, which will likely mean increased demand for deployment of forces for natural disasters and humanitarian assistance, some of which may indeed be military and have already we've already seen that happen in instances around the world. In the tsunami, for example, in Indonesia, there were U.S. military ships provided, the Mercy, to help provide humanitarian assistance, and also in other recent natural disasters, some of which may be increased because of climate change. So there is an opportunity now, when we talk about scenario planning or wargaming, to use a tool that's common among militaries in looking at long-range planning and exercises to see into the future, what might happen in the future, and then to begin to plan for it, prepare for it, and if possible, mitigate the consequences of it.
Yeah, I've been twice in Afghanistan as a functional specialist for agriculture, and given my background, I'm also, I forgot to mention that I'm a deputy chair of the Commission on Ecosystem Management. So I look, of course, into that matter from an ecosystem management point of view. Well, if you look at the military operation that the Dutch Army is doing in Afghanistan, apart from the fact that we have signed and ratified the Convention of Geneva, which had an addition somewhere in 1949 on environmental issues, we definitely try to, because it's not always easy, to apply the same environmental rules that apply in Holland also to our operations in Afghanistan, which means, for instance, our wastewater is treated until a level that it is comparable to the water quality standard in the Netherlands before putting it into the surface water system. We make sure that the water we pump up is not affecting the local water distribution, and those things are well covered. So, and generally speaking, I would say that we try to do as little environmental damage as possible. I think at the normal military bases, that's very well taken care of. Of course, when you're getting into combat, and fortunately this year we didn't have too much troubles there, then there's always a possibility of doing also environmental damage. But there we have compensation schemes. Mostly of it is economic damage, crops being burned down or houses being destroyed, these type of things. Real environmental damage in terms of pollution or because of fighting operations, that is not there, I would say.
At the conclusion of our discussions today, there was a variety of recommendations that have come out. The recommendations ranged from having dialogues with existing security and military organizations. Examples came in terms of Southeast Asia. Another example was in Latin America. And clearly the relationship between IUCN and NATO, we're going to look to further build bridges between those organizations. Dialogues are an important part because it's two different cultures that are coming together here. The culture of the military and the focus of the military traditionally has been in terms of protection, in terms of deployment, in terms of providing security. The culture, and it's been primarily a command and control culture. The culture of the environmental community is more grassroots based. It's from the bottom up. It's been looking at a myriad of issues around the globe that sometimes don't appear to be connected in any seemable way unless you have a strong understanding of ecosystems. And so what we've agreed to do is to have future dialogues so that we can better exchange the knowledge that we have. The IUCN has knowledge on all kinds of species, on all kinds of ecosystems, and how can that knowledge be pulled together and used as a tool that can be part of, as Sherry said, the forecasting of where potential future problems may lie. Now, if you sit and if you talk with people in the military and if you talk with politicians to begin to understand the cost of war, the cost of conflict in terms of real dollars, in terms of environmental damage, in terms of human suffering, many of these problems, if we begin to look at it with the ability to identify where things are going to arise, the cost for mitigation is much less. And so that's what we're looking at in bringing these two cultures together to look at a transformation that will allow us collectively to begin to look at how do we mitigate these issues. And that's one of the primary goals of what today's activity was. As I said, we're going to have more follow-up dialogue. There was an idea that was floated today that perhaps in the Congress in 2012, or wherever it's going to be, that we can have pulled together enough of data about the environment from across the globe and couple that with the climate change models that are being refined day and day, and actually create and play a war game about the environment in the sense where we can bring a large variety of national security representatives from around the globe. And so that's a target that we're going to try to achieve, and using that as a platform for building global consensus within the security community that the environment is job one.
There are other countries doing this type of work, but the Dutch, in fact, are the front runners. And I'm just not the proud Dutchman, but it happened to be like that. We were first in the north of Afghanistan, deployed in Baghlan, and there we had a very successful operation, especially with small enterprises, business enterprises, not so much about environmental issues. Then we moved to Uruzgan, and Uruzgan is 85% of the province is agriculture. So if you are not, if you want to reconstruct or rehabilitate or develop that part of the country, you have to look into the use of natural resources. Now the problem is that they want to be working demand-driven. They don't want to impose things for provincial reconstruction. And you can imagine that in a humanitarian situation like the one in Uruzgan, the people are not asking first for environmentalists to come in. Yeah. So it is, you have to sneak in through the back door, more or less. Well, I'm an agronomist by education, working in environmental issues, in protected area issues in most of the tropical countries where I've been working with. You're always working with local populations. Half of my work is dealing with farmers, with herdsmen and these type of things. So I have a good background in that one. So I came in as an agricultural advisor. Yeah. And yeah, what am I advising at then? Well, I gave a few examples during the conference, which I may just give back now. I was the first agricultural advisor for the Dutch troops deployed there. And there was one agricultural advisor in the English team in Helmand province, but yeah, he was not a real agriculturalist, he was a geographer, and he was very happy that I came, let's put it that way. But at least they noted that there should be somebody on agriculture there as well. On agriculture as such, the Australians don't have one, but they have people for business and enterprise. The Germans are active in it. They have taken over from us in Barcelona. I think people from Hungary are doing it now, and they also try to do reconstruction things. But basically, agriculture and environmentalists, I think I'm still the only one. My advices are taken very much into consideration by the whole RC South Command. So the whole south of Afghanistan, the analysis I've made of the agriculture situation, the concrete advices I've been giving to, let's say, irrigation rehabilitation, to watershed management, or these type of things, they are very much part of the official policy of the whole of the NATO forces in the whole of RC South now, and which is very satisfying for me. I mean, it's no fun to go to a warlike zone. People may think, yeah, I'm going to play a soldier there. No, it's satisfying to do a good job in a difficult situation for the people living there, and that's really my motivation, the people and the environment. Okay. Now, a very concrete point is, when I came there, before I was there, my colleagues would, at the request of farmers, start digging deep wells for irrigation. Now, a deep well that may be 50 to 100 meters, and when you put a diesel pump on it, it will draw down the water table 30, 40 meters at some places. That would create a big problem, because there are very old irrigation systems in Afghanistan, which are called kareshes. They pick up the water in the mountains from the water table there underground, and then they go underground to a place where they start irrigating. And such karesh systems may be 400 or 500 years old, and there may be 50 families depending on one karesh. Now, if you draw down the water table, you can imagine that the karesh system will not have any water anymore. And then you have to show this one individual who's rich enough. We help him to build the well. He is rich enough to buy the diesel for to pump the water up, but the water has to come from a very deep level. So what he has to, in order to make ends meet, he grows poppy on it. And that we don't want to promote poppy production, of course, again, because that's the only crop that gives him enough money to pay for this. So you see, then it's very clear for this situation that you tell your colleagues, don't build any deep wells anymore, unless it's only for drinking water, and then you make it such that it can only be a hand pump on it, and so you don't get more than 1 liter of water per second or something like that. That's the maximum you can have given the infiltration capacity. That's one thing. The other thing was about marketing of the local produce, because we have a good market nearby in India, and they are having good organic produce in Afghanistan. So don't start spraying things to raise crop production. No, start helping people to market their products. They have very good dried apricots. They have very good dried mulberries. They have good nuts and these type of things. Marketing is, even though you may say, is that ecosystem management? Yes, you look at the whole system, including the marketing system, including the institutional system. I stimulated people to get organized. The average farm size is half a hectare, and 10 people have to live from it. And it's a very individual community. All the leaders have been shot. So if you want to do something, you have to make people get together, at least groups of 40, 50 people, so that they have some impact on the market, and they can organize themselves for training on these type of things. Well, there's now it is only one start, but we have one cooperative now in Uruzgan with 200 farmers in it. Those are small steps, but are very important steps. Those type of things I have been advising on. Yeah? Okay. Well, I can many more things, but you wanted examples.
Thank you.